Hello, everybody, and welcome to How to Speak Maintenance. I'm excited. This is our last episode of the year. We've got a lot of great episodes under our belt this year, from maintenance terminology to technology and maintenance, and self-serving tips for our residents. It's been really a lot of fun diving into it and meeting with our guests and being able to find out exactly how all of our listeners can be able to utilize our skills and training to better partner the office and the maintenance team together so we can be better how to speak maintenance partners, I guess.
Savvy?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm really excited about this topic because we have the opportunity to talk to the one and only Paul Rhodes. So I would like to thank you, Paul, for joining us.
You got it. Thanks for Becca for the invite. And Jason, it's always a pleasure to talk with you as often as we can make it happen.
Yeah. For the listeners out there that don't know you, Paul, what are you into these days, and what are you involved in?
If you don't know me, that might be a good thing. I'm into warping maintenance minds at this point, with specializing in training. My career history in a nutshell: I've been in the apartment industry for over 30 years. I started out on site picking up, dog poo behind building 4 because residents wouldn't, and moved for the first 11 and a half years on site. Then I went to work for a little itty bitty company called HD Supply and ended up running their maintenance training department. And then went to work for the National Apartment Association for almost a decade as their maintenance and safety instructor, in charge of CAMT and the Certificate for Apartment Maintenance Technicians course. I did that up until World War Germ prevented us from doing any more training at all in person, because it was illegal. And I became the director of maintenance for a management company for a couple of years, and then a little over 2 years ago now joined Brookfield as their manager of maintenance learning, to where I have been both on the operator side, the vendor side, and the association end of the maintenance industry. Lately, what's on my mind, I've been thinking of changing my business card away from anything to do with maintenance learning and just putting weirdo loudmouth maintenance guy, because that's kind of what I end up being a lot.
Well, you're very humble, and I've had the opportunity to be able to speak with you on other podcasts, and I always enjoy hearing what you have to say. So I appreciate you spending time with us today as well.
You got it.
Yeah.
You joke, Paul, but we couldn't have anyone better to talk about maintenance training and, making sure that the right hand talks to the left, and office and maintenance communication. I know these things are things that you've always been passionate about. So thanks for being with us.
You got it. Anytime.
Yeah. So to kick it off, you've been around the block. Small companies like HD Supply. You're in charge of maintenance training and learning and being a loudmouth at Brookfield Properties. And so what new trends are you starting to see with how we're deploying maintenance learning to our teams?
I think if the discussion is deploying maintenance, I want to believe that I'm seeing a trend where it's becoming more intentional. There is a lot of discussions as I'm around the country talking to at conferences and at other events, talking with maintenance technicians, leaders, all the way from that grounds person level to the corporate C-suite of several management companies. There's a lot of conversation on we've got to make it happen. It's still a challenge for that direction of we're going to make it happen at the corporate level to reach down to the property level and to the boots on the ground level for all of the reasons, short staffing, high turnover, equipment, budget, acquisition, disposition, priorities, all of the things. But I'm seeing more of a intentionality to it of, look, we've got to do this. Yes, I know there's a lot of work orders, there's a lot of things going on, but if we don't ever make it happen, it's not going to happen. So there is a drive to do that for all of the same reasons that it is so hard to break our technicians away from the already busy schedules of what's happening.
I agree. I think that's the difference between being a manager and being a leader, right? It's, a manager is, they come to work and they have the tickets and the turns, and a leader says, look, if I don't invest in my people right now, if I don't say on Fridays at 3 o'clock, from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, or hey, how about we do this right after lunch? Go to lunch from 12 to 1, and then from 1 to 2, you get to be able to sit, digest your food a little bit more and spend some time behind the computer and take a class. Or we're going to get together in the maintenance shop or vacant apartment and go learn about the HVAC system that we have at this property, right? It's being intentional, like you said, because we don't want to be 3 years down the road. We have an opening for a supervisor at the property and nobody's ready. And I think that's the worst possible scenario you can come up with when it comes to maintenance training.
Well, and two thoughts on that piece. One is the question for us as we're operating our properties is who's actually operating. And by that I mean, are you running your property or is your property running you? Because if your property's running you, then, which leads into the second thought in that, then all you're ever doing is reacting.
Mm-hmm.
And while, yes, I admit, the job of maintenance for the apartment industry is a job of reacting. We, as an industry, typically, we don't go into a resident's apartment to go fix something unless the resident calls us first.
Right.
I mean, there is exceptions. We do go in and change an air filter, or we change aerators or things before they actually fail or on a schedule. But for the most part, we are only reactive. And if that translates into training, then you never catch up. We will never get ahead of anything. I like collecting quotes. And one of the ones I've been pondering here recently is a military expert that says the military is always striving to be perfectly prepared to fight the battle they just completed. Mm-hmm. In other words, they're not trying to do innovation. And granted, I'm not a military expert, so I can't speak towards that end. But just in the thought of that quote, if we are only looking to get better at what we just did, how can we begin getting ready for what is down the road? I mean, the hot topic right now is AI, artificial intelligence. And my guess is, Jason, you've seen it. And I know, Becca, at conferences, you've seen it. And maybe on properties, you've seen it to where you have maintenance technicians that are still working off of pen and paper. They've got work orders. They still go. Several of them, the management company has all of the software and the suites and that. And yet, the maintenance technician, when something breaks, the office writes it on a Post-it note, writes it on a piece of paper, hands it to the maintenance guy who goes and does it, and then the office enters it into the computer. Why? Because the computer or all of the office has the impression that maintenance guy can't do computer, or the maintenance gal doesn't like sitting at the computer. So we'll just have them go do, and we'll make the documentation happen later so that we all fall in line.
Yeah. Well, so you're not even teaching them soft skills, right? How to use a computer or.
Yeah. Well, and think about that now, to where in the paradigm of that quote of we're trying to fight the last battle, you're still in the last battle if you're using paper and pencil and you're not using all of the digital tools that are available and the apps and the ability to use the phone. And yet now you've got all the technology and I mean, there's an entire industry built around prop tech now. And yet, if our maintenance technician is using a pen and paper to do their job, how are they going to be ready for the next big thing if we cannot, as an industry, get them off of the last thing? And if we're honest, pen and paper wasn't the last thing. It was like the thing several things ago.
Yeah.
Paul, do you think that intentionality also speaks to sort of more of an appreciation for our maintenance teams? Do you feel like that message has made any headway or is any better than we've seen it in the past?
Yes, I do, and I think that's a good way of saying it. For decades, you talk with corporate and asset managers and regionals and all of higher ups across the board, even in associations. They talk, and the words are all the same of maintenance is the lifeblood of our properties and we need to support them. They're wonderful. I love my maintenance technicians. The men and women who fix things, they are the most important person. After all, they're the ones going into our customers' homes. We need them. They are the most important. Until something happens to where our maintenance technicians need to leave the property. No, I'm sorry, Becky, you can't leave to go do the association recognition award party thing, whatever it is. We have 12 move-ins tomorrow and you still have to get those ready. So you can't go participate in that. Or when participation occurs, maintenance technicians talk to the people on the office, and this is an observation. It's not a condemnation of us against them. But the reality is, you go to any corporate awards presentation, recognition event, and 60 to 80% of the awards are all office-based, tracked metrics and data. And then the remaining part, oh yeah, our maintenance technicians. And yes, there's a lot of fanfare, but when that comparison is made, yes, it does compare. And to your point, Becca, I agree. Maintenance is as I am one, maintenance is the most important thing, but we need each other. We have to work together. That's the only way it's going to occur. So I'm not saying this out of, it's always us, we're beaten down, it's horrible. It's an observation and recognition that we're all, at the end of the day, a part of the same team. I mean, when you talk about your favorite football team, you got offense and defense. And you got a player here or a player there that's outstanding. But when you talk about the team, you need both sides of that team. Mm-hmm. In the same way on our properties, we've got to work together. And that intentionality is, I think, an outgrowth of that message becoming more real across all the levels of our management structures.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's vital that we're taking the time, we're being proactive, and we're getting the message out to the teams. Now, kind of leading on to the next topic, I was wondering if we always sit down and talk about the different learning styles, right? Kinesthetic, visual, auditory. Is there one that you prefer or you think works better with maintenance, or are you more of a across the board, we need to be prescriptive?
My answer to that very specific question is yes, because my particular training or learning philosophy is not based on styles and people. I mean, the chatter, the talk is that maintenance technicians have to do hands-on training, the kinesthetic, as you said. We cannot do online training for maintenance technicians because they have to see it, touch it, feel it, do it, hold it. I believe that's wrong. Everybody can learn and can be excited about learning every different style, as you just said there, depending on topic. See, I think it's more about the method that is chosen by the intentional, like my learning department. The method that we choose to train or to impart knowledge to somebody doesn't depend on the somebody. It depends more on the knowledge that we want them to gain and the outcome we want them to have. And the example I like to use is, my constant refrain is RTFI. That's the most important thing. And as a matter of fact, audience, if there's anything you want about maintenance learning, the number one thing is RTFI. And as long as you remember RTFI, you have a lot of problems and issues that you solve. And I don't care if you're working on air conditioning, appliances, plumbing, your swimming pool, whatever it is, RTFI. And it's an acronym that means read the full instructions. That's what it is. But if you say that in front of a classroom of people, that's the joke. And quite frequently they had the response that Becca, that you had. The laugh, the chuckle, because, this is a PG show, so we're going to keep it there. But then after the laugh, everybody kind of goes, yeah, I'm not going to read anything because I don't learn by reading. And it's almost, we ourselves have trained ourselves. I have to learn by touching, feeling, seeing, and doing. I mean, if I'm going to fix this pen, for instance, I need to actually have somebody show me, how do I take it apart? How do I use and operate and make this pen work? Okay, it's a physical object, but let's talk about something like electricity. Electricity, yes, we can use the devices and teach how our technicians to make attachments and how to remove the insulation off of a wire that goes and gets connected. And all of that is very hands-on. But in order to understand the why we need to remove a certain amount of insulation from the end of that wire so that we can bend it around in a hook to put the hook around the threaded terminal in a certain method to make it right, behind that has to be theory, or it has to be terminology. It has to be abstract knowledge that tells the why those physical actions are so important. Well, if you're dealing with abstract knowledge, you can't do hands-on training. I mean, one of the things, abstract knowledge, amperage. Amperage is a movement of electrons through a conductor. That's amperage. What hands-on training can we do so somebody grasps the importance of understanding the term amperage and moving electrons across a conductor? I know, hands-on training. Let's take a bare wire. Here, hold on to this. I'm going to go plug the other end in and shout the word amperage at you. Okay, that's not good. That's not going to work. That's not the way to do it. Yeah. Instead, our technicians are going to have to read. They're going to have to comprehend. And if they're not reading, they will have to comprehend some abstract information that you cannot do hands-on training. Then that means, whatever method is used, it has to be interesting. I mean, anybody, if they're interested in whatever it is, whatever topic they want to learn about, I mean, I've seen it happen to where you get maintenance technicians that say, I can't learn out of a book. Yes, you can. What do you like? What do you like in culture, in life? Well, I like science fiction. Great. Here's one of the best science fiction books I've ever read. Turns into a series. It's a movie. It's all of those things. You will watch that same person who said, I don't learn by reading. Go cover to cover in that book, and they will love it, and they will be excited about it. And they learned the world, the history, the whatever was happening there. But that's not learning. That's reading a novel. That's reading fiction. No, that's learning. It's the same thing. So what interests you? My favorite method to figure out how I'm going to transfer knowledge to people is curiosity. Just ask, hey, what do you like? Do you like reading? Okay, then here's a book, here's a manual. Do you like listening to things? What if, while you're driving into work, you have an audible version or a sound version of whatever it is? Or what if we discuss it? We sit down across the table, have a large cup of coffee or 4, and we talk it through. All of those are abstract methods that can work, can function. Again, though, you have to be intentional about it. And a big part of that is intentionality, is setting aside the time to make it happen.
I agree. So if you're a community manager, right, and you're listening to this conversation, and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, there's just no time in the day to make opportunities for training for my employees, and you're not figuring out the proper way to get that information into their hands, whether it's they have to sit down and read the terminology, or they have to get their hands on a wire stripper and learn how to take the insulation off. So they're not doing those things. What in your experience, what have you seen as the impact to the business and to the property?
I disagree completely with your precedent of the question that you just asked. Mm-hmm. To where you said, if a manager is looking and saying, I just don't have time, stop.
Yep.
You've already lost.
Yep.
In other words, the precedent has been set in the mind of that property manager. I don't have time. Therefore, nothing. Nothing else happened. It all stops there. You have now hit a brick wall of that intentionality. My answer to that is, what are you doing next? Mr. or Mrs. Property Manager, what is your next task that you have to do within the next hour? Is it going to walk vacant apartments? Take a technician with you. Take a technician with you and ask questions to the technician about why this. My favorite question that a office person can ask a technician begins with what? Any question that begins with what? Why is a fantastic one. Why does the refrigerator make that sound? Even if it's a normal sound, and even if the office person knows it's a normal sound, ask the maintenance technician, why does it make that sound? A big part of learning, I firmly believe, is being curious. And being curious requires zero time, because there's always questions we can ask about anything that's going on. I happen to be sitting in one of our planning rooms at our corporate office here. And there's cabinets behind me and some other things that are in here that if I get stuck working on something whenever I'm in this room, I just go find whatever book is back there behind me, open up the book, and what does this book, this concept have to say? Yesterday, I was working on developing plans for 2025, for next year, and what I'm going to be doing and working on. And I got to the point to where I thought what I had was pretty good, but I sat back a second and before I ran off out of the room, I opened up the cabinet back here, which is full of books of various learning things and various methodologies for different models and ways of creating learning stuff that I am not smart enough to even comprehend the application of it. But I happened to open it up, and it talked about the importance of an icebreaker for doing training. And it got me thinking of, are we doing enough for our on-site teams to interact with knowledge with each other so that, one, we can help develop those soft skills, the interpersonal skills that our maintenance technicians need to have. But the second thing on there is, what if we could come up with a way for our technicians to be curious about what our other technicians are working on and build that into whatever topic that we're dealing with? Just that one nudge. It's maintenance training. We don't do icebreakers. We get there, we make fun of each other, we make fun of whatever broken thing that shouldn't have been broken, first of all, in class, maybe tell a couple of stories, and then we start learning whatever the topic is that we're doing. It's icebreakers are typically something that's done for our office teams and for our leasing teams, when you get into the role play activities of you be the person leasing the apartment, you be the customer, and figure out how to operate those things. It's just a different audience, a different medium. But the fact that I went and looked in an unrelated book and asked a question, does this apply? Maybe the answer is no, but still I tried. I think it's developing that sense of curiosity that property managers get curious about what your maintenance technicians are doing and ask questions. Now, the question can't be accusatory, it can't be a blame game, and it cannot be turned into a weapon. If so, you are not even to the point of saying, I don't have time. My guess is you will be saying, I don't have employees. So it does all work together, and it does kind of go back to being intentional, being intentionally curious.
I love that, being curious. And I love how you said the community manager and the office team needs to be curious and ask the maintenance teams, show me something. That's the whole premise.
And reverse too.
Right.
The maintenance supervisor, if a maintenance supervisor wants to move forward and progress in their career to reach the regional level, they will need to know what goes on in the office. So maintenance supervisor, same reverse thing. Don't say, I don't have time. You make time.
Definitely.
Even if it's just being curious and asking questions.
That's the whole premise of this. I think that when we were originally doing the hints from HR conversation, and I said it's great when a manager knows how to speak maintenance, and that's where Becca took this and we turned it into this podcast. But the thing is those managers that know how to speak maintenance and they understand what their teams are working on, then they have a better understanding of what is my team working on? What's the time frame that they're going to need to be able to get it done? And do I have realistic expectations of exactly what they're working on? And B, can I help them at all? Is there any piece that I can do to be able to help assist with this? And that goes towards spending time to make sure that their employees are making time for training, and that the community maintenance supervisor is making time to train their employees, as well as making sure, like you said, Paul, making sure that we're getting the information to them in the right format. So then that way they're not trying to figure out what amperage is by, maybe
touching it and
put it on
getting a new hairdo.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't have that problem. So
you already learned that lesson.
I did. I learned it earlier. Yes. Well, Becca, is there any questions from the chat?
Well, we
this
not
is being
today.
taped. So, well, Paul, I would like to close this off by asking you to maybe talk briefly about what's one suggestion you would have for anybody coming into this industry that is thinking, maintenance might not be the right avenue for their industry for me. What would you say to them to try to sway them into becoming a maintenance tech, or picking up the dog poop behind building 4?
That is a fantastic way of asking that question, because yes, I'm stalling to try and figure out what would be the one thing that I would say. I honestly, to follow in line with what we've been talking about, is be intentional about it. Try it. There is no reason why you can't start as a maintenance technician. And if it's not for you, don't try and force it. There are too many parts, paths, fusions in the apartment industry that you don't have to do something you don't like. If you don't try it, though, then you've already lost out. You're already missing. I mean, I started out in the apartment industry coming from a retail background. I managed a bookstore. But when the stress physically, I couldn't do that anymore due to all of the stress and that was going on with that. So I took a job, got it from my brother-in-law, who was a maintenance supervisor at a property that needed a groundskeeper. I needed a paycheck that had benefits for my wife and I, and it just so happened. And like a lot of people who are listening to this now, if you're in the industry, you fell in, and even if you try and climb out of the industry, you figure out it's a great place to be. I mean, I love being in the apartment industry. I started out picking up trash. Now I get to be up on stage and talk about picking up trash. It's a fantastic career progression.
I think it's important, too, for people to recognize all the skills you can gain, even in an entry-level position that you can take either to another position within the industry or outside of. And there's a lot of value in that as well. And so you can come to, the apartment industry for a short period of time. You can be in a certain position for a short period of time and then try something different. Or you can go outside and you'll still have learned excellent customer relation skills, maybe some technical skills, how to work with people, all sorts of things that you don't necessarily get elsewhere or in the same way or with the same opportunities.
I think somebody starting out, one of the most wonderful things I've heard was said by Dr. Debbie Phillips. And she was talking about a career path. And she actually moved away from that career path analogy into a career lattice, to where instead of the maintenance path, you start out as a groundskeeper, then you go to a technician 1, then a technician 2, then a technician 3, then an assistant maintenance supervisor, then regional, then all of that way. It doesn't have to do that. Maybe your career lattice interwoven piece is you start out as a groundskeeper and you decide you really like talking with residents and you go into the office as leasing. And then you do leasing and become proficient at leasing to become an assistant manager. And when you hit the assistant manager part, I'm not sure that I like all those numbers and things. But you know what? I remember when I was a technician, I got to be outside and run around all day. And it was great. And I had a little bit more freedom over my time instead of being chained to a desk. I'm going to go back and do that. So then you progress in that way in your career. And somewhere along the line, you decide that you like marketing. Oh my, we go over into the marketing side of things and corporate and structures and various other things. My best friend started out he was on site for 35 years, came to work for me, which is where I met him as a trainer. And then when he had some health challenges that prevented him from standing up all day, he taught himself how to do computer, and now he creates e-learning and has been and doing that for a while, and his health has gotten better, so now he's back training again. All of that within the apartment industry. So it's not all just picking up dog poo, as glamorous as I made that sound. I know.
Yeah, I agree 110% with everything you said. My career, as well as a lot of people that I've known, they fell into it, like you said, and they haven't gotten out because they can't see themselves doing anything else, and they enjoy the amount of opportunities we get to help the residents and be able to make sure their apartment is fully functional and see their smiling face when we get things done quickly for them. So.
And speaking of smiling faces, we have 9 smiling faces who are participating as finalists in our Be the Next Room to Grow Ambassador contest going on right now. You can vote. You can go to TAAEF.org and hear their stories and vote for your favorites in each category: on-site corporate, maintenance, and supplier partners. And voting goes through tomorrow night, which is the 12th, December 12th at midnight. And then we'll have our winners next week.
I'm headed over there next.
Huh?
I'm headed over there now.
Awesome.
That's where I'm going.
Awesome.
TAAEF.org. Okay.
You got it.
Paul, I would like to thank you for helping us round out the year and finish up with a great topic. I feel like we could always sit here and talk for hours, and it feels good. So I appreciate your time. And Becca and TAAEF, I really appreciate the organization putting these podcasts on and giving us an opportunity to be able to showcase the great people that are out there in the industry making a difference and figuring out ways that we can get information to them. And if any listeners are out there and they're looking for any great tools or tricks or resources, the TAAEF resource website is a great place to stop and spend some time to be able to learn about all sorts of things like internships or this great program. So feel free, go check it out.
And you can find this show on wherever you listen to your podcast. So check out our past episodes. Thank you, everybody. And for 2024, that's it, right?
We're out.